The lion cub was drowning. It had a plastic bag around its throat, and everyone around was just watching. No one was moving. No safari guides, no tourists. They were all watching in silence, as if they were watching a documentary. But this is not one of those wildlife images on TV. This was a real struggle in the middle of Africa on hot land. And there, writhing in the bushes, the little lion cub was getting quieter and quieter with each passing second. He was trying to breathe, but he couldn't. The sky as wide as the ocean was getting narrower for him. One of the trash left behind by tourists was about to steal his life. The cub was motionless on the ground. Only its eyes were moving. It looked around with a low, fragile gaze. There was no anger in those eyes, only desperation. It was as if it was asking, "Can anyone see me?" And yes, they could see him. But no one was moving. People retreated in fear. For them, it was just part of the wilderness. Nature takes its own course and we don't interfere, I think they thought. But this silence, it said so much more. People were looking at a drowning creature and doing nothing. And just then, a shadow emerged from the crowd. A slender child, barefoot, with sunburned skin almost the same color as the earth. He began to walk silently. In his hand was a branch, a dry, cracked branch he held like a cane. His eyes were fixed on the lion cub on the ground. People stared. No one understood why he was walking. No one could figure out what he was trying to do. Because he was just a child. He was 9 years old. But he wasn't afraid. He continued to approach the drowning lion, moving forward from the point where the crowd had retreated. His name was Baraka. In the Maasai language, it meant blessing. But at that moment, the name was not just a meaning, it was fate. When Baraka knelt down, time stood still. The camera footage shook. The sun broke through the clouds like a line and shone directly on them. Baraka carefully picked up the plastic piece and began to pull it. The lion cub let out a soft growl. Perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of gratitude. Everyone held their breath. The hundreds of people staring at Baraka fell silent for the first time in the face of a child's courage, and the lion cub took a breath. A deep, long, trembling breath. His eyes met Baraka's. A brief moment, but it was more powerful than words. It was as if all of nature was being reborn in that small glance. Baraka stood up. There was no applause, no shouting, only silence. It was the deepest form of respect, because there, among the trash, a lion cub struggling to survive was no longer alone. And the one who saved it was not a great man, a strong soldier, or a trained expert, but a 9-year-old child. And you? If you had been there at that moment, what would you have done? Write just one word below, Baraka. Because sometimes just remembering a name can change a life. Many lion cub rescue videos had been watched on YouTube, but none of them had started like this. None of them had introduced us to a child who fearlessly approached a cub about to die from plastic wrapped around its throat. This wasn't just a rescue story. It was a true story about when humanity remains silent and when it finds its voice. And this was just the beginning. Because what Baraka did wasn't just a rescue, it was a reminder. It was a call to remember nature, courage, and responsibility. As Baraka knelt in the middle of the garbage dump, looking at the little lion cub with a plastic bag stuck in its throat, everyone's heart seemed to stop. The stick in the boy's hand was such a simple thing. No one believed it could really work. But he was different from the others. Without blinking or trembling, he slowly pulled out the bag. The cub stirred for a moment, its growl grew louder, then there was silence. It was so quiet that even the wind seemed to stop. And in that moment, the breath returned. The lion cub took a deep breath. Its eyes were wide. It was clearly visible on camera. Its breathing was irregular, but it was no longer choking. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth with her hand. A man stepped back. No one could say anything, because everyone had witnessed a 9-year-old child making the difference between life and death. But no one knew. The story wasn't over yet. Baraka had begun to step back when a sound from behind the bushes froze the entire area. A low but clear roar echoed. Then a second sound. Approaching footsteps were breaking dry branches as they advanced. The bushes parted. From the dazzling sunlight, a massive female lioness, the lion's mother, appeared. Her wild eyes locked directly on Baraka. She moved slowly but steadily toward her cub. The crowd panicked. The guides gestured for everyone to step back. Some lowered their cameras and began to pray silently, because no one knew what would happen next. No one in the crowd had the courage to intervene. They just continued to watch silently. As its mother approached, the lion cub whimpered. It was a tiny sound, but it had a familiar frequency, like a call reaching its mother. Baraka was crouched on the ground, motionless. She still had the branch in her hand, but she had let go of it. The lion's eyes turned to her cub for a moment, then back to Baraka. One more step, then a pause. Their eyes met. Child and wild. Human and nature. Two species as close as a single heartbeat. Everyone held their breath, and then a miracle happened. The lioness turned her back on Baraka and lay down beside her cub. She placed her head on top of it, gently nudging the cub with her nose. The cub whimpered, then tried to get up. It was weak, but it was alive. The mother whimpered again, a deep, husky tone. Then she lifted her head and cast a glance at the sky. As if to the whole world, she seemed to say, "This cub is still here, and the only reason is that child." Baraka stood up. He slowly backed away. No one clapped, no one shouted, because everyone's heart was trembling. To be in such open and honest contact with nature, it was unforgettable. The final frame captured by the camera would become the most talked about scene at the end of the video, the lioness licking her cub, while a child, eyes brimming with tears, walked toward the forest from the edge of the bushes. But the real question is, if Baraka hadn't been there that day, would the lion cub have survived? If the bag had been tied a little tighter? If people had continued to just watch? This story is not just a rescue story. It was a warning that struck those who had forgotten, like a slap in the face, reminding them of the ancient bond between humanity and nature. And perhaps that is why we were the ones who were truly saved. As Baraka slowly backed away, his eyes remained fixed on the lioness and her cub. Everyone around him was silent, even nature itself. The wind stopped, the birds fell silent. It was as if the entire world was watching them at that moment. The lion cub had curled up beside its mother. It could breathe now, but it was still weak. Its body trembled. Its mother had rested her head on her cub, but there was no peace in the lion's eyes. She sensed that something was wrong. Just as everyone began to relax, a third shadow appeared from among the bushes. Another lion cub, weak but moving quickly. No one even knew it was there. The same age, but not as lucky as its sibling. It had no plastic in its throat, but it was emaciated from hunger. Everyone waited for it to approach its mother, but it didn't. The lioness didn't even look at him. She growled. She took a step back. Then she looked away. His mother didn't recognize him. One of the spectators lowered the camera. The hut froze in place. The crowd realized at that moment that the mother had only recognized the surviving cub. The other cub seemed to have been erased from her memory. That little second lion cub paused for a moment, then quietly turned back into the forest. Alone. No cry, no growl. Just a silent abandonment. A void that pierced the hearts of everyone watching. Baraka turned his eyes away. He should have done something, but he couldn't. The law of the wild was something humans could never fully understand. When you saved one, you might lose the other. Sometimes winning wasn't the same as saving. And sometimes, only one was remembered. But everyone knew that if Baraka hadn't been there, both of them might have died. That day, a silent decision was made in that safari area. The entire camp was cleaned up. Plastic bags, leftovers, trash, everything was collected. Baraka's image reached millions on social media. People around the world watched this story. Some cried, some cheered. But everyone was left with the same question. Which cub do we remember, and why? Now you've watched this video. You've seen it. You've heard it. You've felt it. And I want to ask you one last question. If you were there, which one would you walk toward? The one that's alive, or the one that's been abandoned? Write your answer in the comments. Because your answers will determine what we remember from now on. If this story made you feel something, like and share it to help it reach more people. And remember, sometimes a child's courage can change the fate of an entire forest.